Representative Freeman, thank you very much for taking the time to join us on Marcy's Law, Why We Do What We Do interview series. Um, you are the second Freeman to join us in the last
And the
couple of
lesser Freeman.
and this we had your incredible wife, really legendary in the survivor space and the victims' rights space in Tennessee. And you have her to blame for recommending you to be our next interview. And I really, really appreciate you taking the time.
Well, thanks for having me. And I want to begin by saying how proud I am of the work that my wife does. I tell people all the time, she is literally changing directions of families and lives every day through the work she does at the Sexual Assault Center. And she's really a powerful advocate for survivors, and I couldn't be more proud of what she does.
Yeah, I mean, it was really incredible to talk to her at length about the things that she's been doing at the
Yeah.
Sexual Assault Center and I mean, she's really taken it to whole new levels. And one of the things that was really kind of cool was how she talked about how you and she can kind of bounce ideas off of each other from a policy standpoint. And, really right out of your minds and your kitchen, you guys can actually develop policy and make it become law through both of your positions, which is really interesting.
Yeah, and I think that having someone, a male, who traditionally those advocating are females, and not that one does a better job than the other, but it's different in that I come to it from a legislative standpoint, educating my colleagues, and those tough conversations of what rape and sexual abuse looks like and what it is maybe easier for a man, especially an older man, to have with me as opposed to having it with a woman. Sometimes I think they feel uncomfortable. And so being able to educate my colleagues has really allowed us to really push this forward in our state and make a big difference.
Yeah, and some of the things that you've done, you and I have talked about some of your legislative accomplishments in the criminal justice area and the survivor area, and it's really interesting to see how all of the stuff that you're accomplishing is done on a bipartisan basis, and these issues through your advocacy have really transcended the political arena.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, being in the super minority here in Tennessee, the only way I'm going to get stuff done is in a bipartisan manner. And, listen, victims of rape and sexual abuse are, black, white, male, female, Republican, Democrat. These issues don't care what your socioeconomic group is or class is, how much money you make, who your parents are, where you live. It's one of those crimes that impacts people equally across the board. And so, again, educating my colleagues on what that looks like, and reminding them that, first and foremost, no matter where you are, what you're wearing, what you're doing, nobody deserves to be the victim of a rape. And secondly, it's a crime and you're the victim of crime. And I regularly will tell people, if my car was stolen last night, I would have led our conversation with, you wouldn't believe it, but my car was stolen last night. If I was a victim of a rape, I probably wouldn't. And I'm the same victim of a crime just the same. And so changing that thought process away from, some sort of victim shaming or blaming to you are the victim of a crime, I think is important. And that's part of what the Sexual Assault Center under Rachel's leadership has done is they talk about it in an open manner that allows people to talk about it in an open manner as well.
Yeah, one of the things that I was fascinated by and incredibly impressed by Rachel's work was we talked about how sexual assault is the most underreported crime, to your point, and how the reported incidents have increased based on the awareness and the accessibility and all of the things that the Sexual Assault Center has done in partnership with law enforcement and with the medical profession. And it's a tribute to the great work that she does, but also the way that she can partner with the different agencies that we've been working with Marcy's Law. And I want to first begin by thanking you and your fellow colleagues in the legislature, Democrat and Republican, for your support of Marcy's Law. We just cleared the last hurdle over several years now, the last legislative hurdle, and we're now going to go to the ballot in 2026, thanks to the leadership and advocacy of people like you and partnership with stakeholders like Rachel and leaders. So we're really excited about being on the ballot and look forward to working with you as we advocate going forward for the people of Tennessee um, to get this thing passed in 2026. So thank you so
Well,
much for that.
my pleasure. These are there are bills that come across every couple of years. You're like, this just makes sense. Why haven't we always been doing this? And thank you for your leadership and advocacy and countless hours of hard work to get this done. I know how difficult it is. And these things don't just happen. It takes hard work. And so thank you for doing it.
Yeah, no, it's rewarding work and it's worth every second. So thank you.
Sure.
Again, now one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is the different pieces of legislation and the different areas that you've worked in the criminal justice area that have really moved the ball forward for victims and really for justice in general. And I wanted to just focus on a few things. One was the bill that I know that the Sexual Assault Center was very helpful in coordinating as well and working with was the bartender training curriculum for
Sure.
sexual assault and harassment. Another one is the work that you've done with the Innocence Project,
Mhm.
and then finally, I'd like you to talk a little bit about the issues that you saw in Tennessee with the backlog of rape kits and
Sure.
what you've done to kind of get that flowing to the extent that the reporting is done in a timely manner, that survivors are honored by being able to follow their case through in a timely manner, and that these rape kits aren't just really lost in the in,
Sure.
in the system to the detriment of the case and to the victim. So if we could just start with the work that you've done with the bartender training.
Yeah. So in Nashville, we have a couple of different programs. The one that I'm most familiar with is the one that the Sexual Assault Center started, which is called the Safe Bar. And what that is it educates bartenders, waiters, waitresses, hostesses, and hosts to the signs of sexual assault, of people not being in safe places, of people being at a bar and not able to get to safety. And so there's a couple of things that program does. One is they have a secret word where you order a secret shot, and if that happens, the bartender knows that you are not in a good place and need help, and so they will try to get you removed from that situation. The second part is just identifying what bystander intervention looks like. Everybody has seen, the TV show on What Would You Do, where people sit by and allow people to berate someone, somebody yell at an elderly person. And the same can be done with sexual assault. It actually spun out of a horrific case where a group of men carried a young woman who was completely passed out, and they passed no fewer than 15 people, and not one of those 15 people stood up and said something. And they realized at that point that they needed to educate and empower your average citizen so that they can step up and say something. And so, with that, in the Safe Bar, we now require anybody who wants to go in and get a bartender's license to take this safe bar training. It's incorporated in their ABC license. So it's really going to end up changing and making it more safe. Nashville specifically has such a large percentage of their revenue coming from tourism that we've got to make sure that when people come to Nashville to have a good time, they feel safe. And so, again, this safe bar training that we're requiring bartenders to take is going to ensure that people can drink and enjoy themselves responsibly, and also that the people around them are going to keep an eye out for them.
Yeah, it's such common sense legislation, and it's really the once again it's a real tribute to the partnership between law enforcement and sexual assault center and the legislature. And
Well, in businesses, I mean, to get businesses on board, to recognize that with their limited amount of resources, that this is something that they should be doing, was quite a feat to explain to them how, yes, you are going to be paying a little bit more, but we think that you will make more because people will want to stay longer and feel safe.
yeah, it really was a great idea. And in theory and in practice, as Rachel told us, it's really been an enormous success. And she said that businesses are starting to sign up and line up because of the fact that it's kind of
That's
a rising tide lifts all boats mentality.
that's exactly right. Yeah.
One of the things that I wanted to speak about next is, well, first of all, just in the general sense of bipartisanship, like we talked about before, that has helped us with Marsy's Law. Uh, the Innocence Project work that you did. I know that you worked with Todd Gardenhire on the Republican side to help get some really serious legislation passed. And if you could just give us just a little bit of background, I think that prior to your getting involved, and I think it was the Tennessee Innocence Project that brought it to your attention, what the issue was that once someone had been convicted, that scientific evidence, if that came to light, then maybe a case could be reheard. But non-scientific evidence like videos or witness testimony could not be admissible. Defense couldn't bring it forward. In a prosecutor couldn't bring it forward either. Could you tell us a little bit how you identified the problem, who helped you, and then what you did?
Yeah, so in 2016, the Tennessee Supreme Court interpreted the error coram nobis statute, which allowed for people that pled guilty, not were found guilty, pled guilty for a crime, could not have non-scientific evidence brought back and forth in front of them. That's witness testimony, that's photos, that's cell phone records, that's airplane receipts, all this stuff. And if you're found guilty, you can have non-scientific evidence. If you plead guilty, you can have scientific evidence, which is DNA and the like. And so what we found is that people were pleading guilty because they were being told by the DA, even further back when they were being investigated. Law enforcement doesn't have to be honest when they're doing an interrogation. They can literally look at you and say, "We know you did it. There's an eyewitness. They saw you do it. We have fingerprint records. We've got you on video." And so there are many cases where people will under duress, admit guilt, and then when they get to court, that is a single piece of evidence saying that they did it. There's no other evidence proving that they committed this crime. DA will use that and say, "Listen, you're going to get life in prison if you don't play ball." And so these people plead guilty for lesser charges. There's also something called an Alfred plea, where you can plead guilty but maintain your innocence. And that's another one where your lawyer can say, "Hey, listen, it's not looking good. We have no evidence to prove that you didn't do this. So you need to go ahead and plead guilty. You can maintain your innocence." But even that type of plea in Tennessee, if non-scientific evidence came forth, you could not have that reheard. So there was a case where somebody under duress admitted that they committed a crime, went through the trial. The trial was their plea was used against them by the DA, and they were sent away to jail. They missed the date of when the murder had taken place by 3 days. So they said it was on a Thursday, that the actual murder was on a Monday or whatever it was. And on the Monday, the person who admitted to the crime was on an airplane and was not even in the state. And so no way they could have done it. And they couldn't have their case reopened. They could not have that evidence reheard in court. And so for me, as a legislator, I realize that it's an imperfect science, that they're not always right. DAs are not always right. Um, the defense is not always right. But anytime we put somebody in jail that didn't commit the crime, that means that the person that did commit the crime is still out and perpetrating. And let's just talk about rape and sexual abuse. Less than 1 to 4% of all rape cases ever end in someone spending time in jail. 1 to 4%. It's such a small number. And the average rapist is going to commit that crime as many as 6 times over their lifetime. So if we arrest someone that we say they committed the crime, they end up going to jail, and they actually didn't, they're innocent. The person that's out is going to keep committing this crime over and over again. And so it's important for us to have a mechanism in which we can do this. And so in a bipartisan manner, we passed a bill, me and Senator Gardenhire, that now allows for people who have pled guilty to have non-scientific evidence heard. So it's a pretty high threshold of what can reopen that case. It has to be something that is real and tangible, and yada yada yada. So it's not going to open up this floodgate of appeals. It's just going to be used for people that really have evidence that they didn't commit the crime.
Yeah, so it really is, it provides an avenue for objective evidence of innocence that has never been heard by a court before in that case to be heard on, let's say, I don't want to say a fast track, but on a relative fast track basis, because what I saw in the legislation that you guys passed was that this legislation also provides for some kind of a freestanding innocence request process with the court. So these cases are not languishing for another 10 to 15 years, but that there's some attention to be paid because of the fact that there is a potential that there is objective evidence of innocence that has not been heard before.
Yeah, and that's correct. And again, the number of people that I have talked to um, uh, with the Innocence Project that have gotten out, that were accused and committed of a crime that they didn't commit, and in many cases pled guilty to a crime and never actually even had their day in court. The evidence not being heard. If you plead guilty, it's never heard. Nothing's ever heard. There's no real investigation. There's no gathering of the evidence because you've already pled guilty. There's no reason to do it. And so allowing this mechanism to be used is going to ensure that we have the right people serving time for the crimes that they actually committed.
Yeah, and I saw that probably as a result of your guys' legislation that the Vanderbilt Law School is opening in the spring of 2026. They're starting their own innocence clinic at Vanderbilt Law School, and these are the things that the work that you guys do can actually result in. And it looks as though the Tennessee Innocence Project that brought all of this to your attention, the work that they have done has resulted in 6 exonerations of people who were wrongfully incarcerated since 2019. So it's just in the last 6 years.
Yeah, and Innocence Project does great work. There's so many agencies in our state that are trying to help those that are serving time in prison to make sure that they're improving their lives while they're there, and so when they come out, they can be a meaningful member of society. And it's been something that I've been passionate about since before I even started serving. And so to play a small role has been great. I've received letters from a couple of people serving time currently thanking me for this, that they're going to now be able to bring the information that's going to prove their innocence forth. Now, whether that happens or not, I don't know. But giving hope to people that I just can't imagine the frustration it must feel to, because many of these people feel like the system was out to get them from the beginning, and that they didn't have a real advocate when they were going through the process, and that that everything was stacked against them. And then if you are incorrectly serving time for for a crime you did not commit, I can't imagine anything worse. And quite frankly, I don't know that there is, to take someone's freedom incorrectly is horrible. And again, we should make sure that we have every mechanism available to us to ensure that that doesn't happen.
Yeah, and it's such important work, and the reason I bring this up, especially in contrast with the work that you've done and the advocacy that you do on behalf of survivors and victims in the criminal justice area, and specifically with the legislation we talked about, but also with respect to Marsy's law, trying to get meaningful and enforceable constitutional rights for victims. Uh, that is not taking, and you and I talked about the concept of constitutional rights not being a zero-sum game. So when a defense counsel will have some kind of objection to constitutional rights for victims, thinking that it might get in the way of the constitutional rights for a defendant, that's just not the case. All
Right.
this is doing is providing constitutional rights that victims rightfully deserve. And this is not putting the thumb on the scale of justice one way or the other. It's just more blindfold Lady Justice trying to pursue justice for innocent victims and for people who may have been innocently may have been incarcerated and they were innocent through the work that you've done on the Innocence Project. So it's really gratifying to see someone like you working with someone on the Republican side like Todd Gardenhire to take these issues and objectively say this is what we need to do on behalf of our constituents to deliver what they really sent us into office to do.
Yeah, and listen, these issues uh, are nonpartisan. It doesn't matter. Justice, victims' rights, ensuring that people have the ability to have their case heard. It's not a Democrat or Republican issue. It's a Tennessean issue. At least here in Tennessee, it's a Tennessean issue. And we have got to figure out a way to remove partisanship from politics because it's impacting our ability to move forward. There are, a meaningful percentage of the population here that dislike me because I'm a Democrat. Not a meaningful, let me clarify. But there's a saying that love me because I'm a Democrat. Neither one know me. And we should get away from that. We should stop talking about this partisan politics and really start working to make everybody better. Because the real work gets done in the middle. It's where they're not happy, I'm not happy. We are both giving up a little to make sure that we're making a difference. When one side is always getting what they want and not getting what they want, I think that's when you had bad laws and things start to get out of whack. And so, for me, I care more about the policy than I do the politics of it. And so, I think that's part of the reason that we're able to do some of the stuff here in Tennessee is that there are enough people that don't care about the politics to allow it to happen.
Yeah, and justice being delivered and justice being delivered on a timely basis is something that you have been consistently addressing. And that brings us to our last piece of legislation and policy area that you've worked so successfully on. And that was addressing the backlog in rape kits and processing rape kits in the state of Tennessee. Could you tell us a little bit about how you found out about the problem and what you did to solve it?
Yeah, it was heartbreaking. In West Tennessee, there was a huge backlog of rape kits, and I'm going to miss the number, but 25, 50,000 rape kits that were untested, that were just sitting there untested. And as I said before, the average rapist is going to commit that crime as many as 6 times over their lifetime. So the quicker we can get them tested, run through CODIS, identify who they are, and get them off the streets, the less likely we are that they're going to be able to recommit that crime. And so there was a young lady who was a victim of a rape in the 80s or 90s. She called the police, went to the hospital, had a rape kit taken, would call the police regularly and say, hey, any matches? Found the guy yet? Anything going on? And they would say, no, 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 nothing's happened. We don't know anything. Fast forward 15 years, and she heard a very similar story to her experience on the news from somebody else. And that newscaster or journalist had ended up finding another 4 people who had a very similar story. The person, where they came from, what they looked like, and she was confident that it was the same person. So she started calling again. Hey, was there ever a match to my rape kit? Um, no answer, no answer, no answer. Fast forward another 10 years, and the backlog of rape kits in Memphis was made public, in West Tennessee was made public. Um, Her heart dropped, stomach dropped, and she knew at that point that her kit had probably never been tested. And so she ended up harassing everybody, finding, going down to the police precinct, and she ended up finding that her kit was in fact sitting in a storeroom with another 5,000, 10,000 kits that had never been tested. um, Finally got it tested, found the person that had raped her, and because they ran through CODIS, and found out this person was serving time in jail, and said, all right, I want to bring this case forward, and the statute of limitations had run out, and she couldn't bring the case forward anymore. And she tried everything she could think of, and let me say we tried everything we could think of to try and give her justice, and the law just didn't allow for it. And so I looked around to see what other states were doing, and on the West Coast, there was a software system that allowed for rape kit tracking. And the example I always use is I can pull up on my phone and see where my Uber is down to the street. I can get a notice if I do ship that my shopper is shopping. I get notice of where my UPS packages are. I can even track the truck around if I need to make sure I'm home to receive a package to sign for it. But with rape kits, there was nothing. You had no idea. The rape kit was taken and it went into the ether, and you never saw it again. And so what this company on the West Coast was doing is when you got a rape kit, you got a QR code. That QR code was assigned to an anonymized number that you could log in to a system and see where your kit was in process. And that's everything from law enforcement picking it up or picked it up, taking it to the TBI or whoever it is to do the testing. Has it run through CODIS? Is there a hit? Has it been sent to the DA for a case? And it allows for victims to gain some sense of control back that was taken from them by that crime. And so the control is they now know where the kid is and where it's going next. We also set up within that process a timeline of how long it should take to move from one thing to another. One of the things about rape kits is there's a chain of custody that's pretty strict and pretty specific. That is usually what's challenged when you go to court for a rape case. They try to challenge the chain of custody. And again, having that individual, giving them that power back that they can track where their kid is. They can call the police department and say, hey, you were supposed to send it to the TBI to be tested in 25 days. What's happening? It no longer do you have kits left in the back of patrol cars that they may throw in the back as they're driving back, and they totally forget about it because the officer has worked, 2 20-hour shifts and is exhausted. It just allows for another level of reminder. And so it's been in use now for I guess 4 years here, or 3 years here locally, and talking to the TBI, talking to victims, it gives such confidence that something is happening, that they know that they can log in and do it. And 1 in 6 women are the victim of rape and sexual abuse. The largest group that is most likely to be attacked, the age group is 12 to 34. So these are predominantly young people, predominantly women, that are the victims of rape and sexual abuse, and they get some amount of power back by being able to track these kids. Probably one of the things that I'm the most proud of, because it was a huge, huge undertaking. And the number of different agencies that we had to sit down with and listen to their complaints and weave it into legislation was pretty neat to see it work.
Yeah, and some of the progress and the results speak for themselves. And one of the things that I was incredibly impressed with was the state comptroller audit that came out in 2024 that showed that the processing time of sexual assault evidence has dropped now from 45 weeks, which it was 2 years ago, to
Mhm.
10 weeks.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's
And,
that's just amazing.
and again, part of that is the work that the coalition does in our state, the Sexual Assault Center does, that I hope I play a small role in. Again, in educating my colleagues, that the quicker we get justice for these folks, the quicker we can stop it from possibly happening to somebody else. And so, part of the reason that the timeline has dropped is we continue to put pressure on them to do those turnaround times and get them as low as possible. B, we've funded new positions, a new forensic analyst, and that lead time to get it up is several years. And then C, we've also given money to municipalities and the state to outsource these kits so that we can get rid of the backlog and start processing these as they come in. It's one of those things that I wish we didn't have to do, but we're doing it. And I also want to point out that it's one of the few crimes where we are asking nonprofit and non-governmental agencies to pay for a portion of this testing and the policing of it. In Tennessee, we give about $1,500. The TBI gives $1,500 to a hospital and or a nonprofit that performs these rape kits to have them performed. It costs them anywhere from $2,500 to $3,300. And so we're asking these nonprofits and hospitals to fundraise to cover the cost. When you have your car stolen, you don't go to a nonprofit to have them dust for prints. The police do it. When you're the victim of a burglary, we don't ask a nonprofit to come in and help you. We ask the police to do it. It's the only crime where we are pushing off the cost to actually police this to nonprofits. And I'm going to keep working as long as I'm down here to change that to fully fund the cost of rape kits and to make sure that the public safety is being paid for by the public.
Yeah, it is. It's and once again, the progress, the actual results that you can see from your work. The TBI, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation director, talked about the fact that they've hired 49 additional scientists,
Yeah,
and they've been allowed to and funded and able to do that. And you talk about outsourcing. They've outsourced 908 kits to a private lab in Florida just last year and another 192 kits this year. Those are
yeah,
all, without your work, without the legislation, those are all kits that would not have been analyzed. And like you said, it, it's known now that people are paying attention.
yeah.
And the fact that you could refer to it, I think, as a survivor portal, where their
Mhm.
survivors can actually go on and check and say, okay, what's going on with this with my rape kit? The other thing that I thought was important was that this piece of legislation extended the retention period for what they call hold kits.
Yes.
Could you just tell us a little bit about what hold kits are and why that's important? They extended it, I
Yeah.
think, for 10 years.
Yeah, sure. So as much as 80% of rapists are known by the victim. So that is, whoever it is, but they're known by them. This concept that we see in movies of someone running in the park, someone jumping out or chasing you down an alley, that's less than single digits of rape cases. The majority is known to you. So it's, a coworker, it's a date gone wrong, horribly wrong. And or it's a family member or your mom's boyfriend. And the level of confusion that takes place and trying to understand what has happened and then trying to understand in your head, why did this happen? Is unless you've been through it is tough to contemplate all those questions and the confusion. And so a rape kit needs to be taken pretty quick. 96 hours is kind of on the outer edge of when a kit can be taken and still be a viable amount of DNA to link it to somebody. And so for years, people would go in and they would say, all right, police are called. You've got to tell us who did it. and were pressing charges. And people just weren't willing to do it, so they weren't having kits taken. And so they created what's called a hold kit. And a hold kit allows again, an anonymized number that is attached to that kit that allows the victim a chance to have the kit taken, and that forensic data held and preserved for a future case if they decide to do it, and then gives them the time to work through the trauma that being raped by somebody that you know has caused. And to me, it's really changed how we look at it. And again, talking about educating colleagues, um, educating my colleagues that don't want to talk about rape, but then don't understand what it is, and educating them on why somebody would want to get a hold kit and why we need to extend that timeline. And so extending the timeline allows people the chance to process what's happened, and then bring a case forward at a later date if they so choose.
Yeah, well, I think it is such a special thing that you can educate your colleagues based on your experience, but also you can go home and you kind of get the answers to the test because you have one of the biggest experts of the state of Tennessee.
You have no idea how many times I was like, I need a quick answer through a text message, and Rachel will be like, I'm in the middle of a meeting. I was like, I need help.
It's an incredible partnership, and it's just such a great story. And I'm glad I was able to have both you guys on back to back.
Yeah.
But it's a great place to wrap up because what you talked about was how now that victims can track these with a QR code and get into what the survivor portal, as you will, if you will, and and they know that there are time frames and people are paying attention. It gives them, like you said, some sense, some modicum of control, and especially rape survivors have really been all of that control and power was taken away from them, and they've been thrust into the criminal justice system. It's a really hard system to navigate, and anything that can give them back any sense of control and to empower them, like this legislation does, and like Marsy's law does, which is why we're trying to get Marsy's law passed in Tennessee and all around the country, to let victims know you have not, we're going to now help you through this land that you never should have to navigate. But now that you're in it, you're going to feel empowered to know that there are people on your side, and we're going to help you achieve justice. And you will have knowledge, and there will be transparency in every step of the way. And you will be able to have meaningful and enforceable rights in your state constitution.
Mhm.
Um, Thanks to people like you, partners like you. And I just want to just thank you for all your work, all your help on Marsy's Law. And I look forward between now and the time that it's actually on the ballot in 2026, working with you and making sure we raise awareness of how important it is all throughout the state.
Well, thank you for saying that, and it's my honor and privilege to be able to do it. I love working on issues that change people's lives in a meaningful way. And the bills that we talked about, that I was fortunate enough to sponsor are, and Marcy's Law will as well. It's all inclusive. Every time I talk to someone who's been the victim of a crime, all they want is to have a little bit of power control back. And Marcy's Law will give them that control. It will force people to have to notify them of changes in the case, to be able to testify, again, to be able to gain just that little bit of control back when it's been taken from them is it sometimes it's the only thing we can offer. We can't bring their loved ones back. We can't undo the crime, but we can allow them to get some sense of control back in their life. And I am happy to support it. I can't wait to vote for it next year. And I can't thank you enough for doing what you do.
Thanks so much, Representative Freeman. And we wish you and your wife all the best. And very well said, very well done. And look forward to working with you in the next couple of years.
Great. Thank you. I can't wait. We'll talk soon.
Thanks.